Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Righty. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission. Today, we're reviewing On-Ramp 2023 fellowship proposals for the 2023 cohort. I'm Jordan Adams, the Artist Services Program Manager here at the Indiana Arts Commission. And we are joined today by Eric Salazar, full-time musician, the clarinet guy, and 2019 participant of On-Ramp is joining us as a co-moderator today. Today is August 16th, 2023. The panelists are meeting here on Zoom and the public is observing on YouTube. Eric, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. Looking forward to sharing feedback on these applications. And in order to have that feedback, we need awesome panelists. And at this time, we would like for the panelists to introduce themselves. Let's go ahead and start with Ben.
Hi, my name is Ben Toledo. I'm located in Bloomington, Indiana. And my full-time gig is a manager of a coffee shop. Artistically, I am a digital artist. I do mainly portraits. I paint on Procreate on my iPad, and then I get my artwork printed onto Canvas or whatever else other materials people would like. So yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. All right, we're just going in the order that's on my screen. So next, can we have Azizi?
Good, still morning. Good morning, everyone. Azizi Arrington Slocum. I am a commissioner for Region 6. I'm also a professor and chair of the Department of Built Environment at Indiana State University. I am also an architect by trade. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, let's have Chaz next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chaz Modinger, and I'm in Bloomington, Indiana. I'm a photographer, and I work for the city of Bloomington doing arts projects and arts management. And I used to work for a Pictura Gallery and for our Center for Contemporary Arts. So very happy to be here as well. Thank you.
Awesome. And Thomas.
Good morning. My name is Thomas Nealand. I am currently located in Brownsburg, Indiana. I'm a multidimensional artist, author, and poet, and I'm happy to be here today. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. I will go ahead and pass it back to Jordan now.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric, and to our panelists as well. Thank you. Everyone watching live, thank you for joining us today. This panel is designed to gather feedback that will help you all as applicants strengthen your fellowship projects to advance your careers. The discussion will also help IAC staff identify any important modifications applicants may be required to make to their proposals before moving forward. I will announce the application that we are going to review. I ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide advice to strengthen the fellowship project, focusing on the evaluation criteria from the perspective. Panelists, please note that the applications do not need to be recapped since all of you have read the application. Just provide your comments. After the first reader is finished, I will ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or differing comments. We are not looking for a consensus. We want the applicant to receive excellent advice from different perspectives and viewpoints that you all bring to the table. After the second reader has finished, I will open the discussion for final comments. Remember, in the interest of time, we are only looking for new, additional, or differing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, that panelist will be placed in a virtual waiting room while the application is discussed. Finally, once the application has been discussed by the full panel, we ask the panel to update their comments in the online system. Panelists, there is no save button, they just save automatically. And it's common for recommendations to change as a part of the broader discussion. So this is common. If there are no questions, are there any questions? Okay, we will begin. We will start with our first application, On Ramp 2023 Wilson. Our first reader is Thomas.
All right. All right. So with this applicant, I really loved that. Sorry, let me go back to the tab here. I thought I had it up. Okay. I love that her goals were specific and could be easily identified. Wanting to reach the masses through musical and poetic endeavors. There was also mention of music licensing, going on a tour of some sort. And in that, I had just a piece of advice for that. In terms of the music and poetry goals, this applicant may consider doing some research on ASCAP, which is a music licensing database, which allows anyone to put their music into this database, and revenue could come from that if any company or media firm or anything like that would pick up those songs or performances. It'd be a great way to build some revenue there and get some exposure on a larger scale. In terms of feasibility, I think that it's definitely possible with this plan that's in place. My only suggestion here was to make sure that as an artist that the applicant is taking time to exist as a writer / musician. And what I mean by that is, not just being engaged in this active writing process, but also like existing in everyday life to help contribute to that, the well-roundedness of the artistry. And in terms of community engagements, I think my biggest piece of advice here would be to look at how this applicant's narrative impacts the community members, meaning like how do they become the champions in this goal. And the reason why I say that is because I see all the goals here and how this helps the artist move forward in the career. And I know that there are plans for readings and workshops and such. But I would like this applicant to make sure that there is like a goal in mind for the actual community, so that they have something to take away from this. Having conversations around this work is great, but we also need the applicant should also consider like how the larger community gets to take away from this goal that's being created or pursued. I had a couple of other recommendations in describing the project in detail. There are some specific dates here, but I would love to see those dates fleshed out. I mean, those main points fleshed out a little more. If I can just search for it here for a second. Where is it? Yeah. Okay. So there are a few dates here, but I'd like to see more of a solidified timeline to understand like what exactly is happening at each point and what the due dates are for that, just to stay on track and have a trajectory. Yeah.
Thank you, Thomas. Did you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas. Our second reader is Chaz.
Yeah, that was a great, I pretty much agree with Thomas all throughout. I do just want to harp on the having a clear timeline with the dates would have been good. I totally agree with that. And then what I also really liked about it was the good partnerships that this applicant had, that they were working with. I thought that was great, like the Golden Street Collective and OBE Studios and all that. So I thought that was a strong point in this. That's always good to have those partnerships and that community engagement through there. And then also, yes, like Thomas said, just having more of a goal with the community engagement, since there's already kind of these good partnerships. Just how exactly will that translate into more of a public outreach with folks. But yeah, that's about it. I think that was a good summation from Thomas, and totally agree with all those points. But yeah, very cool, exciting project too, I'll add. So thank you.
Thank you, Chaz. Do we have any differing viewpoints? Okay, awesome. I will allow everyone to finalize their comments in our online system. Okay, is everyone else good? Okay. Moving on to our next application, on-ramp 2023 Kniffen. And our first reader is Ben.
Hello. So I personally used to play violin and viola, and so this application was very cool to read through and exciting. Some really positive things that I saw was just the broad range of ages and students that the applicant is speaking to and working with and performing for. I thought it was really wonderful bringing in a representation of culture and history to these students, and also bringing in context behind the music and the culture and history with the music itself. Something I might speak to is in here in the example provided, they had mentioned about having to be cautious of publicly submitting certain things due to privacy issues and things. Something that might I was going to suggest is just social media, and I don't know if you have a social media presence or something yet, but possibly being able to get the word out there about what you're doing and provide little tidbits through just clips of things, and being able to take that message even beyond the students that you're performing in front of, but even to a broader audience in the world, because I think this is such a cool project that you're working on and doing. Another thing that I appreciated was just the clarity of where the funds were going. It's very simple. Just creating the business and getting that going. And then also for the community aspect, I think it's so important. You mentioned in here bringing performers and educators together. I think that's a really great bond to happen, especially for the project you're working on. So everyone's on the same page. One last thing I would just add is maybe in here somewhere, I believe you had mentioned, or the applicant had mentioned about just wanting to have people understand exactly what you were, the message you were trying to get across and do. And something I might suggest is just having a quick elevator pitch for people. If you run into someone on the street or something like that, just having that quick, 1 minute, 2 minute pitch of very clearly, hey, this is what I do and this is where I'm trying to go. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Ben. Our next reader is Azizi.
The only additional comment I have is related to the community engagement section. I really appreciate the trying to get feedback from the different instructors to assist you. My only question is if you considered a way to make that a continuous and ongoing process throughout. So that was my only kind of question. Instead of having that feedback at just one point, can it be something that can continuously improve and you just develop that relationship a little stronger? But I agree with everything else that Ben said.
Thank you, Azizi. Do we have any additional comments? All righty. I'll allow everybody to finalize their comments in our online system. Awesome. Okay, we will be moving to our next application. This is On Ramp 2023 Hairlson. And our first reader is Azizi.
Okay. So my feedback, I think that specifically they did an excellent job going through all of their goals, specifically key pointing how things would happen in a timeline and providing specifics. I thought they did an excellent job again with feasibility as well. When it came to community engagement, my only suggestion there is to really think about how your project can essentially leave a lasting impact on the community, how it can inspire you, feedback from the community, just really kind of honing in on the fact that we want engagement to be ongoing and active and beneficial for both parties. So that's my only suggestion there. I thought everything else was completely laid out really good. That's all I have.
Thank you. Our next reader is Ben.
Hello. Yes, I guess my only feedback, again, I agree with everything said. I was just going to add in there with the budgeting. I would say my only suggestion would be to possibly add in some budgeting for marketing and online marketing. Maybe not ads necessarily, to Facebook and Instagram, but even just maybe giving some money to an influencer or someone well known on social media that could help get the word out about the book as well. And I just love the combination of dance and literature. That's really cool. So
Thank you, Ben. Do we have any additional comments? Thomas, you sure? Okay. We will finalize comments in our online system. Alrighty. Moving to our next application. On Ramp 2023 O'Brien. And our first reader for this application is Chaz.
All right, thank you. Overall, I thought this project was really interesting and important with the environmental impact this can have and awareness. I thought that was a very just current, just a good thing a project to focus on. And there was clearly passion for that came through. So that was great. For the goals, I thought that the goals were really strong and listed out really well, which was nice to see. And then I thought this acres group, what could have been just a little stronger in the application for this to explain this project more thoroughly would be just more of an explanation about acres and what that organization is and why you would choose that organization over other ones, like why that particular one. But it's just, I really saw the goals and passion really clearly through this all and thought it was a really interesting project. And then for the feasibility of it, I thought it was very ambitious to make all those paintings, but I love that. It looks like this applicant had a lot of support that they outlined and a good time frame was listed it was very clear with dates. So it made a lot of sense in that aspect. So I loved the ambition of what they wanted to do. And then community engagement, I thought that even though they have a lot of support, just kind of making it more obvious that the community is involved with learning about acres directly, or like how just a little more detail on that would have made it a little stronger, I think, as I'm unfamiliar with this acres group. So just kind of, again, just explaining that organization, why you picked it and what exactly they do, and how like the acres will help create the dialogue in specific ways, like an artist talk or something. But the social media aspect was good. It was all very much laid out. And I just wanted to also kind of know, like, how are you reaching out to engage people with your work? Like, exactly how are you doing that? And yeah, overall, the goals are all very listed out. There's yeah, it just seems like a pretty strong application and project. So I appreciated that and very clear.
Thank you, Chaz. I was having a hard time getting back to my mute button. Okay, our next reader is Thomas.
Yeah. So I agree with everything Chaz said. The things that I really appreciated about this project, the two were the ambitious goal of the large scale paintings. And in this process, it feels like this applicant has the plan laid out already of what the art should do. And I believe that it's going to spark some necessary conversation about the impact that arts has on the environment. That could be the difference between like policy changes and the actions of people that live in or around those environments. So I really appreciate the fact that she's allowing her art to go before her in this way. I also appreciate the outline of how she plans to increase her revenue, as that was one of her main goals, is to establish financial independence. I think by tying in the value to her, the price point, even the value to her art pieces, really dictates how committed she is to this project. And so I'm looking forward to seeing all of that success. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other additional comments? Okay. Seeing none, we will finalize our comments in the online system. All righty. Moving to our next application, On-Ramp 2023 Ford. Our first reader is Thomas.
Okay. All right. For this applicant, I thought that the goals were clear and effective. I didn't have any rebuttal or anything to the goals, seeing that this artist just wants to expand their abilities and showcasing her work. In terms of feasibility, I had no doubt that this project could be accomplished. I did have one thing to consider, however, as time passes, and that was, does the time, material, and intellectual property match the value of products? Just because as she continues on this journey of entrepreneurship, want to make sure to link that worth as an artist and an artist who also has products, to make sure that you are getting or giving what you're getting and giving what your art is worth. And so more specifically, getting into the let's see the products here, if I can find it. I don't see it anymore. The prices for each of the pieces, just wondering if those really match up with the time and effort that she's putting into creating this work, was my only piece there in terms of feasibility. And that's mainly to make sure that she also gets a return on the investment that she's putting in to her art. In terms of community engagement, I loved the idea of the butterfly life cycle metamorphosis talk or experience. I had a question of whether you think there could be room for mindfulness concepts. I think that could also like open up another pathway for engagement with the community, and in terms of like building revenue as an artist. The more that you're able to diversify your skill set, the more marketable you become in the field. So that could be something to consider. Those are all of my comments.
Great suggestions. Thank you, Thomas. Our next reader is Chaz.
Hello again. Thomas just said it so well. I agree with everything. And yeah, I thought the goal and project was really intriguing and very cool and just very interesting. And yeah, I was going to have to say with the feasibility part, just I was a little unclear if you are selling the work. And so just to harp on that, just like, are you selling it? Will you, just that's going to take a lot of time and effort. So like Thomas said about that part, just really think about that and how it's manageable and, that, you're getting your due for all this work. And then, just for the community engagement part, I thought like maybe an artist talk or just more specifics on how you'll engage the community. Like I love artist talks. I think they're important. They're a good way to connect with your audience, or just how exactly you might engage them and who the audience is that you're looking for would have made it a little stronger. But still, this is, it was all just a very interesting project. So I thought it was really cool. And thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? All righty. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just have one. I agree with everything else that was said. My only additional comment would kind of be a lot of what's been said, but specifically on the goals. I was looking for a little more information as far as like detail-oriented tasks. Is it going to be like one exhibit or is it going to be multiple? So I just wanted a little more information, maybe because the project sounds so interesting, and I think a lot of it, we just want to know more. But again, when we're trying to lay out the specific goals, we want to know what are those specific measures. So just a little more information there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Okay. We will finalize comments in the online system. Awesome. We will move to our next application. On-ramp 2023 Zartman Romano. Our first reader is Ben.
Awesome. So for this application, I thought, again, this was so unique. Not only taking the love and passion for watercolor and art and sharing that, but also sharing it with such a message behind it and a very clear message. I could see that this individual has put a lot of thought into the marketing side of things. And how to present this. And even I can see in here dates for, holidays and things of like, hey, this is when I'm gonna, launch a certain type of card. I think some notes or one more appreciation as well. Just I appreciated the future. I think under goals, it was a long-term goal for this. And I really appreciated bringing, creating studios where, you could bring people together from outside as well. So a few just comments really quickly. I think my only feedback really for the greeting cards and, the getting the message out into the public was just making sure to put like a personal story with it. I think for consumers on the other side, I know the message of it is very special and unique, but also making sure that the people viewing it also see your story and your message behind it, because I think that just adds that added value to what they are, purchasing or getting when they can know very clearly like where this passion for this project is coming from. So that's my only feedback.
Thank you, Ben. Our next reader is Azizi.
I agree with Ben's comments. The only additional comments I have, definitely can see your passion throughout this, and I agree that adding that personal story would help. I want you to consider essentially the DNA community that you mentioned and how they can be immersed throughout the project, not just in providing feedback after it's done, but can they also inspire and help you throughout the creative process of the project. And nope, I think that's my main comment there. I would also say just make sure you're going back and double checking. I think some of your numbers didn't match up when it came to the budget, but that's minor detail.
Thank you, Azizi. I will interject and say that while it's minor detail, it's kind of a major detail. So that may be one of the required modifications for a lot of folks, is to make sure that that budget is balanced. So we'll touch more on that at the conclusion of the panel. Any other comments?
I guess if I can, I had one more follow-up comment to what Azizi said. I don't hate to harp on social media so much because I think it's so prevalent in today's world, but I was just going to say, I think that's also such a great way to involve the community on the journey of the process of the creation of the cards and things, and bring the community in with you is, through stories and posts and things. And, that's instant feedback from people that are viewing your work, because you can do polls and things like that, and just bring the community in with you along on the journey.
Definitely. Thank you for that, Ben. Other comments? Okay, we will finalize comments. All righty. Moving to our next application, On-Ramp 2023 Wilhite. Our first reader is Azizi.
Okay. So for this project, I definitely love the idea. I wanted more information. So when it came to your goals, I wanted a bit of specific information about how they could actually be measured. When it came to feasibility, again, more information in terms of the timeline. So just providing some more specifics. I know that you kind of, went through the steps, but maybe some dates I think would kind of help as well. So just a little more detailed information. When it came to community engagement, again, I hate to be like the community engagement person, but I thought it was a lot of really good information provided on community engagement. And one of the biggest things is that it should be ongoing and active. And I kind of am not seeing really that commitment. Well, not that commitment, but actually this ongoing and active. Yes, you're providing something to the community, and I think that's great. And I do think it can impact the community, but I'm also wondering, how can a lot of the prints they're already done. So can something be incorporated, whether it's some type of talks or something that makes community engagement just a little more stronger, where the community can also inspire you, and maybe you are able to then leave an even lasting impact. That's not just your art that will be able to inspire them, but how can it be mutually beneficial? My other kind of final comment is just paying attention to the dates that we put in the beginning. So again, I hate to be the person that harps on the little details, but your end date is prior to your start date. So just pay attention to little things like that. But overall, I think the proposed project and the artwork, it definitely can be inspiring and impactful. I just encourage you to think a little more about how it can be mutually beneficial and ongoing throughout the entire project.
Thank you, Azizi. No worries on community engagement. That is a huge a portion of this program for sure. And so while we want you all to further your career, we want you to leave a lasting impact on the community, however you define that community. And so we can talk more about that at the conclusion as well. Our next reader for Wilhite is Ben.
Yeah, so I honestly agree 100% with everything Azizi said. I think the feedback was spot on. I also noticed the date at the beginning. So just a little switch there with the number. A praise that I wanted to celebrate though was I feel like this project is very unique with the massa paper and such. And so I could tell through the budgeting and things that, very clearly done the research on what it will take to get these, projects printed and things, and also given some thought onto where you're going to print those. So I thought that was great. Also, one other thing, I thought it was awesome that you had given some thought to timing the presentation of the pieces with an already established event, and kind of just not piggybacking off of it, but just like, getting your work combined with that to reach the community faster. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Ben. Any additional? Go ahead, Chaz.
Hi, yeah. I thought it was really interesting too. And as a photographer, I think it was really cool. I really like the project. I think explaining the masa paper would be cool for people to know, and like the importance of that. I think you're using it's like a Japanese paper or something. So just kind of explaining like why you chose that, just the more detail would have been good, and why I think it would have been interesting to explain a little more with your goals, like why you wanted a temporary outdoor installation. Like, why did you choose that? That's not necessarily what you think of in photography. I think that's really unique and really cool, and I love that. But like maybe talking a little bit more about why you chose that and how that particularly will further your career rather than have a gallery show or something. I love this public art aspect, that it's an outdoor installation. You don't have to go to a gallery, anyone can see it, but just kind of explaining more what that meant and how that relates to the photography could have made it a little stronger. And then, but as a photographer, I'm like really intrigued and think it's really cool, a great idea. And so I just wanted to say that as a photographer. And then also just my last thing that I don't think was really mentioned, you say like partnering with local city and county governments and business owners, just a little more explanation on who those people are exactly. Have you started talking with them? Who exactly are you talking to? Just again, more details would have been nice, but that's all I have to say. Very cool. Thank you.
Go ahead, Thomas. Thank you,
Okay.
Chaz.
And then to piggyback off of Chaz and talking with like those organizations regarding, I know there was wanting to do workshops, classes, art talks, things like that. The earlier you get on board with these organizations, the more likely you are to get funding when they start to request from their foundations. So those are also other things to keep in mind there. And then with community engagement, I agree wholeheartedly with Azizi in terms of making it mutually beneficial for both sides. I think that in terms of like a public art display, we can connect with local businesses and like the art buyers and things like that, but we also have like the people who run on the floor, so to speak, and those are the community members who have stories to contribute, which could help influence the art that is displayed in these public spaces. So, being intentional about engaging the community in that way and seeing what they have to offer so that they are also a part of that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I think everybody's commented. So finalize your comments in the online system. Awesome. We're about halfway through. How are you guys? Anyone need a break? We're good? Okay. We will move to our next application, On Ramp 2023 Darnell. Our first reader is Chaz.
Hello. Overall, I thought this was a great, very detailed application. So many details, which was great. You could tell the applicant mentions that they have done this before, and I think that came through pretty well, that they know exactly what they're doing when, and this will help their career. I think that because this isn't, necessarily a new, this isn't like a brand new thing they're trying, just kind of why, a little bit more details of like, why would another book, like obviously another book is good for your tool belt. I feel like you described that pretty well, but just maybe making it a little stronger, like what the real goal is with this and where you want to go is a little vague. I think it makes sense that just growing as an artist, having more books and getting out there is good. But I mean, overall, it was really great outlining goals. I thought it was funny that you said you were exhausted from the first one. That casualness in applications, I don't know, just watch that sometimes. I think it was good for this. I thought it was funny. But yeah, there's a very specific and well thought out feasibility. I loved the details. I was like, you're going to make this happen. I truly believe that you can do this. The community engagement, I just think a little more on how you might directly reach a new audience. So you've done this before. How are you going to reach new folks? That might have been good to consider. And I love the workshops and the accessibility that you outline in this. And so, yeah, everything's just like very detail oriented. You're putting a lot of work into this. And yeah, I just thought it's really well thought out. You have partnerships, you have all of this, but just how exactly will you engage that new audience? And I think that's kind of it. It was really good. I thought overall an interesting project, combining two things, two mediums of art. So that was really good. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say on it. Again, it was very clear, detail oriented. So kudos.
Thank you, Chaz. Our next reader is Thomas.
Thank you. Chaz, you laid it out pretty clearly. So I'm only going to give a couple of things here. I love that the community engagement is clear. It's clearly a part of the mission of Evansville Monsters. I also think that because the bulk of this work is already done, the biggest part is just marketing it, building these connections around these art forms. So I think that the project is feasible. And then by doing so, that would lead to the fulfillment of the goals, being able to pursue this art form full time one day. A couple of suggestions that I have, in addition to leading workshops and conversations around this book and art form, to also invest time in attending conferences that can help expand your network as well. One popular one, if you are not already aware of it, is AWP, which is the Association of Writers and Writing Programs, and they host this every year. And this year it's in Kansas City, so it's relatively close. If you wanted to get on board and meet some publishers, meet some authors who may be doing some of the same things, so that you can not only build a community in Evansville, but also attract new people to the area as well to create larger impact. So thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Any additional comments? Go ahead, Azizi.
So I completely agree with what everything else said. The schedule is extremely intense, but I'm excited for you because I'm just like, wow, you're ready for it. Of course, my suggestion is in the community engagement section. Again, I know your product has already been essentially created. appears to be a successful topic, but again, looking for that inspiration piece. I also wanted to just add the fact that you mentioned that the venues are located next to bus stops, and that would help bring in a diverse group of people. And I just kind of wanted to kind of disagree with that fact. Just because a venue is located next to a bus stop does not mean that those individuals of diverse backgrounds are going to come inside the venue. So I want to encourage you to think deeper about how those individuals could be engaged to actually come into those different venues and be welcomed. Yes, bus stops provide different access to different individuals, but just think a little further, because nothing says they're going to come into the space to actually engage with your product.
Can I add something else behind that?
Go ahead.
I agree with Azizi, and I think that a way to if in fact you were going to use this bus stop thing would be to look at the ways in which public art becomes a part of that bus stop, and then you might have some attraction if people are waiting or wandering, and they decide, oh, okay, let me go and check this out, right? So and that dips into your community engagement, obviously. So yeah, consider that.
That's a great point. I totally agree. Just want to say thank you for saying that.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. We will finalize comments. Awesome. Moving to our next application, On-Ramp 2023 Rainboth. Our first reader is Thomas.
Okay. All right. So I'm not muted. That's great. Okay. So the goals, I think, were clear in the application. The applicant wants to establish a creative space, not only for the self, but for a wider range of artists. I thought that the project seemed feasible. My only suggestion would be make sure to analyze the sales a little more, get specific as possible, so that you have a surefire plan and maybe even a backup plan for accumulating that $5,000 in revenue. It didn't really occur. It didn't really. I didn't catch where that $5,000 in sales or how that was going to be accumulated. Maybe I missed it, but I don't think I saw that. Especially since all the projected cash expenses are what you're spending. So just making sure like you have some specifics there and like how you plan to accumulate those $5,000 in sales. In terms of community, as the project involves like the inclusion of other artists, I'd also think of ways to spark dialogue around your plans as well, to have this creative space. And that could be like taking surveys, asking people what they would actually want from a community space, and getting to know their heart, since it's not just about the artist creating a space for themselves. So thank you.
Thank you. I believe our next reader is Chaz.
Yes, hello. Again, well said, Thomas. I agree with all of that. I thought that the timeline, was fairly detailed, but there were no actual dates really. So I think holding yourself to a timeline and kind of having more specific dates on when things will get done would be good. Is what I have to add. And then, yeah, again, just with community engagement, more specifics on who exactly you're working with and who the audience is. I really love what Thomas just said with it's, not all about us artists. It's also about creating dialogues and connecting with others. And especially with this project, I think that's really important to engage people to know how you're going to engage people with this. But also, I think as having a gallery background, I think it was really smart, just FYI, that you are going to go on Artsy. I think that's probably a good idea. So I thought that's a really great way to, branch out and really share your work with folks. But, so it's a good job on that. Thought that was a good part of your plan and project. So that's it. Thank you.
Faz. Any additional comments?
So the one additional comment, I agree with everything else that's been said. The only additional thing I would say is I really enjoyed reading about the inspiration the artist had from living in Haiti. Like, I thought that was amazing. And I just, because I felt like that was conveyed so well within the application, I encourage you to think about how can the culture and community that exists within Indiana influence and inspire you at some way in this project. And again, I think that the art that you created and the story you told connected to Haiti is like, man, this is amazing. Can you get a similar story for your community here within Indiana?
Well said. Thank you so much. Any other comments? Alrighty, we'll finalize comments. Awesome. Moving to our next application, On Ramp 2023 Williams. Our first reader is Ben.
Awesome. So for this application, I just put outstanding. I think for this one, the resume really speaks for itself. I think I wrote down that I didn't really feel qualified to comment too much on this application just because of all the amazing things this person has already done. But I think with a little bit, my one little thing of feedback was just that with everything that this individual has done and bringing it all into a combined space with this website that this individual is creating to kind of help move the message forward in a clear way, just keep in mind, I think websites can be a little tricky, and obviously I see in the budget here that, you put aside, an adequate amount for, creating that great website, but just keeping in mind that some websites can tend to be messy and too wordy. And I think just kind of taking enough time to create a website that is very clear and to the point and visually like grabbing, and just making sure that the important things are right at the front, and people don't have to search through too much to get the clear message of what you're trying to accomplish. So that's my feedback.
Thank you, Ben. Our next reader is Azizi.
Okay, I agree. I do think the project is, it's a good project. There was a lot of good information provided. My only additional comment is I realize that the artist mentions they've, reached their plateau within Indiana. And again, I'm focusing on community engagement because the different exhibits, places that you're aiming for are not within Indiana. And I understand that because, you have such a long history, and a lot of your engagement that you shared within the history within the community, I feel like it existed there. And I just feel like in this project, are there ways that we can find a way to engage the community? Can the community inspire some piece of work? Is there something that you can do to create a lasting impact within Indiana, within the community here, something a little more specific related to this project, even though your final exhibit will be here? Is it something that can be done to make some type of mutual, ongoing, kind of active relationship with the community?
Thank you. I will say a part of the program, as we define community, we want to make sure that the foundation or the primary community is here in Indiana, as this is an Indiana funded project. And so while we don't frown upon moving outside of Indiana, the primary community needs to be here in Indiana. So we can chat about that a little bit more in your required modifications, but that is that. Any other comments? Okay, we'll finalize comments in the online system. Awesome. We will move to our next application, on-ramp 2023 Jacob. And our first reader is Azizi.
Okay. Excuse me. So I definitely thought that this project was extremely detailed. Very clear information was provided throughout. When it came specifically to the goals, my only kind of feedback there was, I didn't have any feedback. I thought that was great. Okay, moving on to feasibility. So I really thought that a lot of detailed information was provided here as well. A lot of information about the different businesses and the different artists that they plan to work with. My main feedback is, if anyone can guess, in community engagement, which I, again, thought that the connection and relationship you had working with the different local businesses definitely provides that opportunity to inspire you and for that impact to be mutual. I kind of just want you to think about a continuous relationship, like once the products have been actually delivered, how can a relationship kind of be continuous? And I think it definitely will be able to be, but that was the only thing I wanted a little more information on.
Thank you. I believe our next reader is, Ben.
Hello. Yeah, so I agree with everything that Azizi said. I had the same thing written down about community. I think it's great working with businesses, but then also, those businesses already have their established community. So, if you're working through them and reaching their community, how do you also bring their community and bring it into your project and your passion surrounding you? The other thing I was going to add was, I can see there's so much detail here, especially with the budget and the expenses. I was going to say under income, I was going to suggest maybe even for mugs, especially these are very unique, obviously, and very detailed. So I was going to suggest maybe even, you might be doing this already, but like Etsy and things are great places for that extra community and extra income, especially for things like mugs. My last feedback thing was just going to be keeping an emphasis on why your mugs stand out from the rest, and just keeping the focus on, I believe it was, hold on one second, sorry. the sgraffito, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It sounds very unique and special. So just keeping the emphasis on that as you're presenting that out to the to people.
Thank you, Ben. All righty. Do we have any additional comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll finalize comments. All righty, moving to our next application, on-ramp 2023 Mabry. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. And our first reader is Chaz. Chaz, you're muted.
Sorry. Now it's taking forever to load. Okay. 1 second. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. Thought the photography was really great, and that printing work is always a good idea. So I love that. In photography, sometimes we get a little stuck on in the digital age and websites and social media. So I loved that your project was printing a book, this little booklet. I thought that was great. Just printing it out, I think it's always good. And I thought that you could have been a little more specific with who the fashion world in Indiana is, because I thought this project very intriguing, very cool. But who is the fashion world in Indiana? Just more details on that. And like who you might work with locally would have been cool, because I loved the photos and that you shared for this. And I thought, okay, yeah, this is a great medium. This is the next step. That makes a lot of sense. So the goals made sense, but just a little less vague, just more details on who you're working with, how it applies to Indiana specifically. Because you say that, but I just was a little unclear of like who exactly you're working with again, just to harp on that. And I thought for the feasibility plan part, just more details again would have been a little preferred. Like how many books do you plan to make and how much does it cost to print one? That would have been nice to like have outlined. And like how many pages will it be? I know you kind of said like how many photographers and everything you want to work with, etc., or artists you want to work with. But I just want to know if there will be an online version, because I think that would be a good idea as well. Like that you want to print it out, but also again having it online. I don't think I saw that in there. And again, just addressing in the feasibility part, like who you may work with locally or how you'll print the book, and like and again, are you self-publishing? Just more details on that would have made it a little stronger. And then a more specific description on how you'll directly engage your audience. Again, just how are you reaching people and just how are you exactly specifically doing that? So I just kind of want to know like more about the Indiana fashion world and how you're marketing to them and how you're engaging them. Because I just found this really an intriguing, very cool project, and I just kind of want to know more. So that's why I was a little left, just wanting to know a little more about it. But overall, very cool. I think it's a great idea, a great project. But just again, those just more details and specifics. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next reader is Thomas.
Thank you. I agree with everything that Chad said. I think that the goals for me were all interwoven with each other, making for a seamless experience if done correctly. In terms of feasibility, I'd say that this project is feasible. I do have questions geared towards the timeline. So between September 11th and December 31st, I understand that photo shoots are happening. However, I'm wondering like what the minimum or maximum turnaround time for image editing is in the context of sequencing and editing the book. And I asked that because in order to maximize time, it seems that like December 31st edits will have a shorter window than the others, especially with that turnaround of January, or let me make sure I'm correct here. Where is it? Yeah, with the turnaround time of January 1st to May 1st with sequencing and editing, I just wanted to, I guess, understand if you are solidifying your editing by the 31st, and if so, given enough time for those edits, for those photography edits to be made in time to start sequencing the book. In terms of the cost of book production, I also agree with Chaz. Just to know how much one book is, especially since there will be high resolution images, definitely premium color. The pages will probably not be your standard type of page. So understanding that would be usually on average, like for anything like that, each book itself might be anywhere between $9 and $20 just at wholesale. And so really taking a deeper look to make sure that those numbers line up in terms of your budget would be important. I guess that also goes along with like the printing cost, which I know there's $1,000 allotted for that. But again, I don't know if that's printing of the images or themselves or printing of the books and the images. So like being more specific there would be really helpful. And then with community engagement, I'd like to see the story of it all, like why this project is so important, especially as you consider like the marketing and distribution aspect of the project. Tell us why community is like one of the core pillars, and more importantly, show us how these local designers will be the heroes in their stories or in this project. Because I think that, like many people said before, the personal narrative goes a long way with the community. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? All right, seeing none, we will finalize comments. Thank you. We will move to our final application, On-Ramp 2023 Yanos. Our first reader is Thomas.
All right. So I was very pleased and impressed with this application, although with the extensive experience of this applicant, I'm not surprised either. So I think that, of course, with investing the time and education and craft into the fiber arts community, this applicant will achieve their proposed goals. I thought that this project was feasible because we have a clear timeline on like what needs to happen over the course of the next several months to a year. There are details about things such as like compiling artists and how they're going to get compensated for the talks, and what organizations you need to reach out to and the materials that you need. So it was very detailed for me, and I feel like I understood your project in full. I didn't have any objections to the budget, and neither to the projected cash income and all those things. In terms of community engagements, I think you're spot on. I think in order to grow as an artist, you have to immerse yourself in the spaces that would allow you to get there. So I think you're taking like the great strides to hone in on the craft with fiber arts. And I think that in doing so, you'll be able to have the tools that you need in order to reach the larger community that you're trying to serve. So great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll finalize comments. Well, no. Sorry. I'm like, where's the last one? I think our last reader is Azizi.
I agree with Thomas's comments. It was extremely detailed, a lot of information, everything was clear. One of my questions, again, just because there's so much information always provided, I'm always like, well, what about this? So my question kind of when it came to the goals was just wondering if some of the new techniques and skills would be incorporated into the show, just because, you know, I would assume, but I just wasn't 100% sure. Again, a minor detail, the project end date is before the project start date, but an extremely detailed project. I think you're doing some great things in terms of community engagement, about educating the public and trying to make those connections. So just again, encouraging you to be intentional with that continuity throughout the project. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you, Azizi. Go ahead, Chess.
I was just going to say, I just wanted to add my 2 cents that I love the educational aspect in this with the community engagement. Thought that was really cool with your project. So kudos for that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, now we will finalize comments in the online system. Awesome. So this concludes our discussion for the On-Ramp 2023 cohort fellowship proposals. Just a couple housekeeping notes. I know that you guys were watching, and so please do not immediately email me. The next step in this process is that Eric and I will go through the comments made by the panelists. A lot of this discussion was just for you, for professional development, for recommendations, things to consider in your project as you go along. Eric and I will go through these comments and decide what is actually required for you to modify. There are other things that will happen after that. And so we will send out correspondence with those next steps, but no need to email me defending your project or any of those things. We will send out next step details, okay? So thank you all for watching, and we will be in touch.